So guys, it's no secret that J. Cole has been in quite a pickle this year. People have been counting this guy out for a very particular reason, and he just dropped a brand new record called Port Antonio, where he reflects on all the hate he's been getting recently and clears up why he made the decisions he made. And of course, we're going to break down this entire record and understand why earlier this year J. Cole dissed and then backed down to Kendrick Lamar. But it's important to note that these problems Cole has been facing did not start this year. In fact, they stem all the way back to 2021 when J. Cole dropped a freestyle to Drake's record Pipe Down called Heaven's EP. On that record, he questioned his place in hip-hop, if his message is still resonating like it once was, and he reflected on how he'll be approaching his work in the future to make sure, if no one else is proud of his legacy, at least he is. On that record, he rapped, "But lately I've been questioning, second-guessing, whether or not I've got something to offer since I done eluded poverty, or has the money watered me down? That truth is hard for me. But I said to myself, whatever you do, you won't do it partially. So from this day forward, I move with a new ferocity. Success is in the effort. So if I try my hardest, I'm at peace knowing that God didn't deal it in his group of cards for me. Some people say that I'm running third. They threw the bronze at me. Behind Drake and K-Dot, yeah, those guys are superstars to me. Maybe deep down, I'm afraid of my own luminosity. So when you see me on red carpets, I'm moving awkwardly." Now, while Cole did reflect on his spot within the big three, he ended off the song on a confident note, rapping, "The tale's official, the best guy breathing, it just failed to hit you. I'm kicking my feet up while I write this in somewhere tropical. I'm supposed to be relaxing, this passion makes it impossible." And this new song, Port Antonio, he dropped, almost feels like a part 2 to this record. The title alone is an ode to the tropical city in Jamaica. It almost sounds like he's picking up right where he left off on Heaven's EP. On the final bars of that record, Cole rapped he's kicking his feet up, writing this somewhere tropical, and his passion for hip-hop is making it impossible to relax while he reflects and writes these rhymes on a tropical island. Now on this record, he's right back in the tropics of Port Antonio with an update to the message he sent us on Heaven's EP. See, on Heaven's EP, he was reflecting on the luxury that his success from rapping has granted him, but he questioned if that made him lose grasp of his relatability and the overall message he wanted to convey. But by the end of the record, he regains his confidence and vows to continue pursuing his passion, while letting the world know one day they'll wake up and realize how great he was. Now with this new record, Port Antonio, it's almost a deeper reflection into what Cole thinks it truly means to be great. And while he reflects on his upbringing and the changes in his life, he also accepts the changes that bowing out of this battle have placed on his legacy, and whether or not it leaves any sort of either positive or negative impact on his artistry. Now, before we break down this new record, it's important to note the backstory. After Cole dropped Heaven's EP and said while the public viewed him as taking that third place behind Kendrick and Drake, he believed eventually the world would wake up and realize his passion is what makes him the greatest in his own right. After that record released, he got on stage with Drake, and Drake echoed those sentiments, telling Cole he's one of the greatest rappers to ever touch a mic.
As he was saying in the freestyle about, they handed you the bronze and whatever me and Kendrick, I just want you to understand something. You are genuinely, without a doubt, one of the greatest rappers to ever touch a mic. And I want to let you know, it's way too many people in the world that think and know that J. Cole is at the top on the pole position. So don't ever see that shit. I love you with all my heart. You're my brother. One of my favorite artists, and I always appreciate you out there. I just want to say that.
Now this is way back in 2021, and since then, Cole has been on a rampage proving to us why he genuinely is one of the greatest ever to touch a mic. Whether it was guest verses on songs like Johnny P's Caddy, where he rapped alongside Benny the Butcher declaring himself the best rapper alive by saying, "I put your favorite rapper's neck in a noose, never letting them loose, cold world, the heat'll blast through your speaker, he the last of the Mohicans, no weaklings, last in my sneakers, rappers want me on a song, they're gonna see the wrath of the Reaper," and also rapping, "Really no MC equal, the best rapper alive, headshot, now go and ask the best rapper that died, they'll tell you he never lied." And then we get to 2023, when him and Drake dropped First Person Shooter, and Cole finally declared himself the best amongst the big three. He rapped, "Love when they argue the hardest MC, is it K-Dot, Aubrey, or me? We're the big three like we started a league, but right now I feel like Muhammad Ali." Here, Cole was acknowledging that him, Drake, and Kendrick were the best of their generation, but right now he's feeling like he's the greatest of them all. And as you probably know, this is what prompted Kendrick to go on Metro Boomin and Future's album and say, "F the big three, it's just big me." And as much as this was a clear message to Drake, it was also a warning shot to Cole to kind of stay in his lane. And when I say stay in his lane, that's important because what Cole's talking about here is legacy, right? What does it mean to truly be the greatest? Do you have to destroy your peers in lyrical showdowns to prove to the world that you can win in any battle and you're the best in your lane? Or should your stature stem from the impact you've left on the game, the quality of your catalog that you fed the world, and the messaging in your music? Well, for a short period of time, Cole felt the pressure of competition and stepped up to the plate. Ironically, he was the first one to release an official, full-fledged diss track in this battle between Kendrick, Drake, The Weeknd, A$AP Rocky, and all these guys. He dropped his project Might Delete Later, and that project was riddled with bars that sounded more confident than Cole has ever been on record. He kicked off the confidence right on the first song of that project when he rapped, "Still the hardest rapper on the planet Earth from January 1st until the ball drop, and breaking news, I've officially entered my prime," which is real interesting. This is the point where a rapper would typically start to decline. Somehow I've climbed. And then on the last song of that project, 7-Minute Drill, is where Cole would declare his position in this battle, targeting and criticizing Kendrick's legacy directly by rapping, "He's still doing shows, but he fell off like The Simpsons. Your first album was classic. Your last one was tragic. Your second one put people to sleep, but they gassed it. Your third one was massive. That was your prime. I was trailing right behind, and now I just now hit mine. I'm in front of the line with a comfortable lead. How ironic, as soon as I got it, now they want something with me." Now, this was a far different tune than Cole was singing, no pun intended, on that Heavens EP record in 2021, where he said the world threw the bronze to him behind Kendrick and Drake. But just about a day or two later, that album title Might Delete Later would never become so prophetic, as Cole would delete the diss off of streaming platforms and bow out of the beef on stage at his Dreamville Music Festival. He got on stage and said making 7-Minute Drill was the lamest thing he ever did. He said this song was an attempt at jabbing Kendrick in a friendly way, but in the midst of downplaying Kendrick's legacy, his spirit didn't feel right, and he acknowledged that Kendrick was one of the greatest rappers to ever touch a mic.
And when it comes out and I see the talk, that don't sit right in my spirit. Trying to find a little angle and downplay his greatness. I want to say right now tonight, how many people think Kendrick Lamar is one of the greatest to ever touch microphone? Dreamville, y'all love Kendrick Lamar, correct? As do I. So I just want to come up here and be like, that was the lamest, goofiest shit. And it made me feel like 10 years ago when I was moving incorrectly. I pray that Kendrick really didn't feel no way. And if he did, my chin out. Take your best shot. I'm going to take that to the chin. Boy, do what you do. It's love.
And the rap game was in a frenzy after this. All that tough talk Cole was doing on records, saying he's the best repeatedly. Now a little real competition didn't sit right with his spirit. What does that say about how strong of an MC Cole truly is? Well, in the meantime, Drake took the baton, going toe-to-toe with Kendrick and simultaneously addressing Cole bowing out of this battle by rapping that he doesn't care what Cole thinks. Kendrick's bars were weak, and while Cole might have been losing sleep on the issue, Drake was charged up and he was ready for war. And I think this adds even more weight to these song titles like Port Antonio, or Cole's bars about kicking his feet up in the tropics while reflecting on his legacy and continuing to pursue his passion. Because in the weeks after bowing out of the battle that didn't sit right with his spirit, we saw pictures of J. Cole posted up on the beach by himself, with headphones wired up to a laptop. We saw him hop on several features, some great, some not so great. If you know Grippy, then you know. And I think that this showed us while Cole wants to be the greatest, he's also carved out a very unique lane for himself where he values peace. He acknowledges his existence at the top amongst other rappers just as skilled as him in their own right. And amongst this competition for the crown, as we can very clearly hear in this new record from Cole, he also values respect and friendship between his peers, regardless of each of them simultaneously trying to be the greatest. But speaking on friendship with his peers, people weren't only questioning where J. Cole's place in the Big Three would be after bowing out of this battle, but I'm sure you guys have also wondered where he'd stand amicably with his peers within the Big Three. While he might have apologized to Kendrick on the world stage, he also slandered Kendrick's catalog on the first diss record to come out of this battle, before Kendrick even threw a direct shot at him. And as for Drake, well, as Kendrick rapped on Not Like Us, Drake did Cole foul. After the battle, Drake posted a meme to his Plot Twist Instagram account, which said, "Remember when J. Cole got his phone stolen out of his pocket by a fan, and they called Jay-Z from it, but he wasn't answering, so they called from his own phone, and he picked up?" Here he's basically implying that it wasn't just the rest of the world overlooking Cole's greatness, but it was also his mentor and label owner, Jay-Z. Now obviously Drake also told us that while Cole was losing sleep on this entire thing, he wasn't. And also, one of his mouthpieces, Maul from the Rory and Maul podcast, someone who is in direct communication with Drake, has said on his podcast that Drake does not like J. Cole right now. There was even a clip of Maul saying this on Instagram and Drake liked the post. Could this be because Cole hopped on several features after the beef with rappers like A$AP Rocky, Future, and Daylight, who have all dissed Drake in the last few months? Ironically, Rocky was even sneak dissing Drake all over his song with J. Cole. maybe Drake had left him out to dry, and by liking this post, he basically left everyone confused on whether or not this was him confirming that he indeed did not like J. Cole after J. Cole bowed out of this battle. So with J. Cole possibly on the outs with former collaborators and Big Three peers, and with the fastest forfeit we've ever seen in a rap battle, it's left the world questioning J. Cole's next move. On recent records, he's been so confident that he's now in his prime, even calling himself the best rapper alive and the best out of the Big Three. But now, he's shown us that maybe these claims were baseless, as he's refused to combat Kendrick on his statement of there being no Big Three to begin with. Now, he's been gearing up to drop his next album, The Fall Off. It's a project he's been teasing for almost half a decade at this point, and sometimes he insinuates that this could be his final album. It seems to be shaping up as somewhat of a concept album, with Cole either bowing out of the game gracefully, or maybe it's an extensive reflection of his career and where he's at this point in time. But the details of this project have been hidden. Cole's obviously a quiet guy. It's always been kind of hard to predict his next move, but with the constant teasing of retirement, mixed with the lyrics about passion, being in his prime and not giving up the crown, it seems like J. Cole has found himself at a crossroads. He took the high road in the biggest rap battle of this generation. He acknowledged himself as not morally equipped to compete against Kendrick Lamar. He's contradicted his bars about any rapper going up against him getting destroyed, but yet he wants us to believe that he's the greatest. So what does it truly mean to be the greatest? Well, Cole gives us his perspective very clearly on this new record. And in a way, this is his version of Kendrick's record Watch the Party Die. On that song, Kendrick was analyzing the state of the culture after this battle ended. He drew a line in the sand between what he stands for what he considers greatness, and what society has been plagued by due to the rise of social media, radio personalities pushing propaganda for salary, and artists who push a message of indulgence, materialism, and toxicity. Meanwhile, on Cole's latest record, he's tackling these topics through a more internal perspective, drawing a line in the sand between what makes him great, what brings him peace, what he wants to be remembered for, and what the audience might have wanted from him throughout this clash amongst the titans. The first verse of this record starts off with Cole reflecting on his upbringing and how it might have differed from the people who grew up in the same conditions that he did. He starts the song off by rapping, "Young Jermaine walked a straight and narrow, minimum wage jobs for dinero, but my mind was still on the zeros. I fiend for the perks that was seen flipping birds." It's a slick double meaning with the perks line, as on one end he's referencing fiending for a perk pill, but ultimately while Cole didn't consume these types of substances, he fiended for the perks, the benefits or the financial gain that came from a lifestyle of flipping birds, a lifestyle that he did not take part in. He was on the sidelines. Get it? Cole World, the sideline story? Anyways, he continues reflecting on his come up by rapping, but never forgot the spot where I developed my block, the dwelling, the top, the ville where my skeleton's locked. If I could do it all over, then I would never swap. I've seen the good, I've seen bad, had my melanin mocked. Then Cole begins reflecting on the beef between Drake and Kendrick and gave us one of the best Michael Jackson bars throughout the entire battle. This was a big theme throughout the entire beef, as it started on J. Cole and Drake's song First Person Shooter, where Drake said he was one song away from beating Michael Jackson's record for the most Billboard #1 hits. He concludes the song by repeating the line, "Beat it." Kendrick responded by saying if Drake is Michael Jackson, Kendrick is Prince, and Prince outlived Michael Jackson. He then told Drake that before he thinks he's not alone, he should ask what Mike would do. Then Drake flipped the Michael Jackson and Prince comparisons by saying that Kendrick is brothers with Jermaine, aka he's brothers with J. Cole, but he wanted him to stay out of the light. Similarly to Michael Jackson's relationship with his brother Jermaine Jackson, Drake rapped that maybe he's Prince and Kendrick is actually Michael. J. Cole adds his perspective on this by dropping some of his own MJ-themed bars, rapping, "I've seen lifelong friends turn to devilish ops. I was Mike in red leather trying to tell them to stop. You better beat it before you see the heavy metal get popped." Now, just like Drake, Cole's referencing Michael Jackson's song Beat It, but flipping it in a different narrative. The song Beat It actually focuses on the importance of avoiding violence and walking away from conflict whenever possible. The song was narrated from the viewpoint of someone frequently caught in win or lose situations, and the verses have Michael Jackson advising a young man, newly involved in a gang and eager to prove himself, to steer clear of trouble. It sounds like Cole was trying to give his peers the same advice. Cole then continues reflecting on his upbringing and how his parents' finances helped him move out of his lower income neighborhood, and he touches on the insecurities, identity confusion, or potential guilt he may have felt moving up in wealth classes and leaving the hardships he spent most of his childhood in. He rapped, "You can't relate, lest your father was not around, and your mother went out and found someone else and then brought them around. Their salaries did combine when they married and brought you out of that poverty. You moved to a soft little part of town, so that when you did go back to the hood, you feel awkward about it now, and your confidence started to drown. But the rapping gave you some positive thoughts, and you jot them down, and you got them down." These bars are Cole showing us that he's seen both sides of the coin. He's seen the violence that can stem from growing up in a place of poverty, where the only viable escape plan one might aspire towards is feeding for the perks of flipping birds. While on the other hand, living a life of comfortability and safety can help you see that there are more positive routes to escape that cycle of violence and poverty, but it can also leave you feeling guilty when you return to the harsher part of town that you were raised in and recognize that the positive change may have only happened internally, while the rest of your old neighborhood continues to live a darker life for survival. Now on the second verse, Cole makes a callback to that Heaven's EP song that we spoke on earlier, where he was questioning if his newfound life of luxury and fame have watered down his original message. He also reflects on the awkwardness he felt in the first verse, where he returned to the hood after moving out into a softer part of town. Cole raps, "Trying to be something, hoping that peace comes from my cursed mind. One thing's for sure that I matured since my first rhyme. I learned on the go you can't please them all and it hurts trying in this game where all you got is your name." So it shows here that while Cole at one point may have felt uncomfortable with his rise of fame and how it affected his lyricism, or the confusion he might have had on his greatness and his position within the game, he's now realized he's matured from the first rhyme he wrote. And you can't please everyone. Your greatness stems from your name, your authenticity. Now the next set of bars, in my opinion, carry that same double meaning. Cole is criticizing the violent subject matter that plagues the industry today, saying that it's what turns a profit, so that's why people feed into it, but also saying people were eager to see him engage in that same violence for the sake of winning a battle, thinking that's what would positively impact his stature in the game. He rapped, "I hate when raps become like do not disturb signs, can't knock it if I see it, it's about the dough. They instigate the effery because it's profitable, but second stop the violence tools, I pulled the plug because where AK was about to go. They wanted blood, they wanted clicks to make their pockets grow." Cole continues to explain why he bowed out of the battle by rapping, "They see this fire in my pen and think that I'm dodging smoke. I wouldn't have lost a battle, dog, I would have lost a bro. I would have gained a foe. And all for what? Just to attain more props from strangers who don't know what I've been aiming for?" And it's interesting because while Kendrick rapped that this beef hasn't been about gimmicks or critics, it's always been about love and hate, and he's the biggest hater of what his opponent Drake stood for, Cole has an entirely opposite sentiment here. He's also saying this battle wasn't about critics or props from strangers that he doesn't know, but unlike Kendrick, he doesn't have that same disdain towards the opposing end. From his perspective, this battle would have resulted in him turning a friend into an enemy. While Kendrick viewed this as a destruction of everything negative Drake stood for, Cole viewed winning this battle as merely gaining props from strangers who don't even know the influence and legacy he's truly trying to leave behind. Cole emphasizes again why his decision to stay out of this beef was to ultimately keep his sanity and to not be entrapped in a dark war of dirty allegations and insults. He rapped, "Since the age of 14, Jermaine is no king if that means I gotta dig up dirt and pay a whole team of algorithm bots just to sway the whole thing on social media." And while he's reflecting on this beef with a sense of clarity, as it really did turn into an ugly war of Twitter bots and allegations, Cole also understands why Kendrick and Drake went to war in the first place, and he explains what they feel it means for their legacy as he raps, "Competing for your favorite role means to be considered best of live and rest. The weight of both things. I understand the thirst of being first that made them both swing. Protecting legacies so lines get crossed, perhaps regrettably." Cole then proceeds to explain why he feels there may be some form of regret on both Kendrick and Drake's part for crossing the lines that they did, and how Cole feels guilty for being caught in between the crossfire. Similar to the guilt he expressed on the first verse of this record of being a bystander and caught in between the violence and hardships of the neighborhood that he grew up in and the softer lifestyle he later moved into. Cole rapped, "My friends went to war, I walked away with all their blood on me. Now some will discredit me trying to wipe away my pedigree, but please, find a rapper out that's rapping this incredibly." Cole concludes the track by once again reflecting on greatness, what it means in his eyes to be great, and how this beef and violence in general should have never been and was never a part of his story or his legacy. He rapped the final bars by saying, "My dog texted me, I'll share the words he said to me. If you refuse to shoot a gun, don't mean the gun ain't deadly. I guess in that metaphor, hypothetically, the gun is meat." I texted him back like, "I guess a gun ain't what I'm trying to be." And I don't think Cole could have explained his stance better than he did on this record. It's amazing to also know that while he might have left fans confused when he initially bat out of this beef on the Dreamville stage, and his silence throughout the whole thing had people feeling like he was isolated from that big three, and maybe even insecure about his own legacy, Cole shared his perspective in the most mature, clear way possible and the best way he knows how to. Not through Instagram captions, not through rants on stage, but through the messaging in his music. He's telling us a gun isn't what he's ever tried to be. He's never been a violent person. engaging in this war didn't sit right with his spirit. He tried to warn both Drake and Kendrick and felt guilty when they engaged in lyrical bloodshed, fueled with dark allegations, personal attacks, and social media wars. By staying out of it, Cole not only kept his sanity, but simultaneously kept his greatness intact, as he showed the world that his legacy is not to be remembered by petty jabs or battle raps with the aim of pleasing the public. He's just trying to be hip, the best he could be. And for that, I think we owe him a hug. So if you're watching this on a computer, an iPad, a phone, or whatever, wrap your arms around it and let Cole know that we appreciate his greatness, all right? Now, I think it's also interesting that Cole decided to release this song initially just from his Instagram account. This is a trend that every rapper from the Big Three have done over the last few months. Kendrick put his Watch the Party Die record directly on Instagram. Drake has been teasing multiple records strictly through Instagram. Even some of his diss tracks were only put up on IG. And some of these great records, whether they were a part of the beef or songs that reflected on the beef, they only live on social media, nowhere to be found on Spotify or Apple Music. And I think this is going to be a big thing we see going forward. As Universal Music Group, the biggest record label in the industry, just signed a deal with Facebook. And while we don't know the details of that deal, it seems like they're teasing some new form of music release and consumption by testing out how songs perform when the biggest artists in hip-hop release their records directly through Instagram. But anyways, that's a story for another video. If you want a deep dive on that, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know how you feel about Cole taking the high road in this battle and what you think about his perspective on the whole thing, or what it means to his legacy. Love him or hate him, give him a virtual hug through your computer as you watch this, and drop a like as you watch this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
There's a lot of little nuggets in both of their disses that if it wasn't for these breakdowns, and salute to, guys like this, Rapaholics, because I think they directly get it.